Welcome back to the shop. In this video I'm going to be checking the timing on my YZ250 using a dial indicator. These will be the same steps for the YZ250 and the YZ125. You check them both the same way. You'll need the manual. We can download that for free. But first, let me go ahead and pull that stator cover off. Alright, stator cover's off. Now, if you see my other videos where I talk about ignition time on these bikes, they have this line right here on the stator plate, and then there's this line on the case right here that I'm pointing at. And typically, if you line them two lines up, that's supposed to be a quick reference, get the timing right type of thing during assembly. That does the trick, and in most cases, that is accurate. But we're going to follow the manual, and we're actually going to check it with the dial indicator. There'll be another line on the flywheel. Right up in there, you'll see there's an arrow here, and there's a line right there. That's the line that we're going to be matching up to the line on the stator when we have the motor in the proper, when we have the crankshaft in the proper location, the piston in the proper location, using the dial indicator. So let me go ahead and get the seat and the tank off so I can start setting the dial indicator. And a little bit further in the video, I'll be discussing the advantages of advancing your timing or retarding your ignition timing to kind of tune in the bike to what you need it to do. But let me go and get the seat and tank off. Alright, the seat and the tank is off. I have the spark plug out. Now I have to go ahead and set up the dial indicator. I have a magnetic mounting type dial indicator. Probably would have been better to have a clip-on style for this, but I'll see what I can do to make this work. Alright, I have the dial indicator set up in here. Since I'm using a magnetic mount, I had to use the pipe to mount the magnetic for the dial indicator. Takes some time. You got to fiddle with it a little bit to get it in there perfectly, but I got it done. Alright, so let's go ahead and download the manual. If you type in Yamaha manuals, it should be the first one right there, Yamaha Motorsports. Then you click on Find Your Manual. Plug in your bike's information, and boom, there's a manual. Little quick tip is after you open the manual, if you go up to the top right here, there's an option to save the manual, so you can actually save it on your hard drive or on your phone and carry it with you. You won't have to have the internet connection to access it. But let me go ahead and find the ignition timing part of this manual. Okay, on page 333, it shows what I've done. I've hooked up the dial indicator in there. Then it explains we're supposed to find top dead center and zero it out. So let's go ahead and follow the manual. We're going to find the top dead center, zero out the dial indicator, and then we have to rotate it to this position right here, 0.18 of a millimeter, and see if the marks line up as they show right there. So let's give it a shot. What I'll be doing is turning the flywheel by hand here, and if you look up here on top of the dial indicator, you'll see that. You see it go up and down. That's just me doing this. The piston's pretty much at top dead center. I'm just bringing it down, but I gotta find the top of the toppest of the dead centers and zero out this gauge. So what I'm gonna do is turn it till I believe I have it at top dead center, and then I will zero it out. You gotta do it you gotta be real delicate when you hit the zero on this thing, because sometimes it shifts. Okay, I got it zeroed out. Now let's make sure there's no positives numbers. I'm going to sit here and just do this to the flywheel again and make sure no positive numbers pop up. As long as they're only negatives as the pistons. You see right there it's a negative? That's okay. So let me go the other way. We got positive numbers there. So let me find the highest of the positive numbers. Let me twist it until I get it to the highest point right there. 0.02 millimeters. And that is the dead center. I got to get... Alright, now let me double check the work. I'm going to wiggle it first counterclockwise, make sure there's no positives. Okay, it's starting to go negative, that's good. Now I am going to go, I'll show you like this. Now I'm going to go the other way and see what. We're at zero right now. Let's make sure, keep twisting slowly. So there it is. Okay, I think that's it. We're going to check it one more time though. This time I'm just going to set the camera right here. Okay, you can see it's at minus 0.04 of a millimeter. Let me twist it counterclockwise. I got zero here. Make sure there's no positives. Oh, there's a positive. And sometimes that's just things shifting. but we're trying to be as accurate as we can here. Okay, negative. Now I'm going to go clockwise, so the numbers will fall again. Should stop at 0 if it goes into any. Yep. Okay, now we're back negative. Let me go back the other way one more time. Make sure we have no positive numbers. Real nice and easy and slow. There's 0. And okay, no positive numbers. So now the manual said that we're supposed to take it to 0.18 of a millimeter. So let me go ahead and do that. I want to spin it clockwise to get there. So 0.18. So let's get it to 0.18. Oops. Go back a little. I want to get right on 0.18. There we go. You can see on the dial indicator it says get the light on it, 0.18 of a millimeter. So now let's go down here and let's see where the lines mark up. With it at 0.18 before top dead center, the mark on the flywheel matches the mark on the stator plate. You can see the mark right here that I'm pointing at. Let me get the camera to focus a little bit better. There it is. It matches the mark on the stator plate, and the mark on the stator plate matches the mark on the casing. So what that tells me is, let me see if I can get the light in there a little bit better for you so you can see that one. What that tells me is if you get that stator plate mark lined up with the mark on the case there, like this one is, you see it down there? If you line that up, that's going to get you pretty much at stock timing. I don't think it's necessary to have to break out a dial indicator to get your timing right. If you just line up the mark on the stator plate to the mark on the case, that's going to put you at stock timing and you'll be good. Now, if you follow my videos, you'll see that I pointed out, I have a video called YZ250 Free Mod where I discuss that they've been sending a lot of bikes out a little bit retarded on the timing, where you'll notice that mark right here in the state, if you check yours, that mark on the stator plate right there is a little bit to the right of the mark on the casing. And if you're running good feel and you're not having any detonation issues and everything's all good and you want a little more bump in your power, all you got to do is just line them marks up right here, this one to that one, and it'll put you at the original stock timing that they used to come out at before they started sending them out a little bit retarded. You know, I assume, like I discussed in that video, it's because they assume a lot of people are going to be running poor feel and stuff like that. But if you're running good feel and you want to bump up your power, I mean, that's a good start right there. And again, this is going to work the same on a YZ125, although you will want to download your manual and find out the specifications for that one. They're going to be a little bit different. If I don't remember the exact numbers, but they're definitely different. But the procedure is the same. The numbers are just a little bit different. And the YZ125 also has the same marks on the stator plate and also on the cases, which you can just line up if you don't have a dial indicator and you just want to get your bike pretty damn close to right. You just line up the marks and you're pretty damn close to right. So anyway, let me button all this back up and we'll talk a little bit about ignition timing, when you should advance it or retard it. Let me put this bike back together first. Alright, the seat and tank is back on. Now, if you had to make corrections to your ignition time, and it's pretty easy to do, all you have to do is loosen up the 3 Phillips screws that hold the timing plate in. And the timing plate, you'll see that the slots that the screws go into for the plate here are they're slotted out where you can twist the whole plate a little bit this way or that way. The plate behind the flywheel here that has the pickup on it. So as you turn it this way, clockwise, you will advance the ignition timing, and as you turn it counterclockwise, you will retard the ignition timing. And the reason being is this flywheel is connected to your crank, and the crank always spins the same direction that the rear wheel is spinning when the bike's going straight. So the crank's spinning this way. This pickup right here is sensing for the high spot on the stator. Let me get it up here so I can show you. That little metal slab right here, when that comes across this sensor right here, that's what triggers the CDI to make the spark. So if you turn the stator plate back here clockwise, you will move this pickup further clockwise, which means as this flywheel spins counterclockwise, it's going to see that high spot, that metal index right there, sooner, and it will spark sooner, advancing your ignition timing. And obviously if you turn it the opposite way, it will get it further back and it will delay or retard your ignition timing. And if you have to make any changes to ignition timing, one tip I would give you is sometimes these regular Phillips screwdrivers, it's really tough to loosen these up with that sometimes, and you strip them out. It's best to go ahead and get an impact driver. You can pick these up at Harbor Freight for like $10. You can get them on eBay for cheap. You basically just put it in the groove and hit it with a hammer, and it does the twisting for you, and it does it without stripping out the head. It's always nice when you put it back together. When you tighten these up, I like to use Loctite on them. I don't need that coming loose while I'm out riding. But alright, in my experience, when to advance or retard the timing. In my experience, the YZ250 2-stroke, you can't go wrong with just setting it stock. I've played with this bike a lot throughout the years. Since 2006, I've been riding these things and fooling with them and tuning them. And it's just really hard to beat the stock timing on this bike in most cases. That is the best middle ground. However, I would say there's a little more room for improvement on the YZ125 as far as advancing and retarding, in my experience, if you're looking to dial it in. In my experience, the YZ250 is really good in stock form. With the stock timing, it does really good. But if you do feel like you have to change the timing, or you want to change the timing to change your engine performance or for your fuel quality, these are some tips that I have for you. If you have to retard the timing because of poor fuel quality and your pinging, you've already jetted it, you can't run better fuel, maybe you don't have access to better fuel, or you don't want to spend the money on better fuel, and you don't want to change your head profile, you can retard the timing to help alleviate some of the detonation. You don't want to go crazy with it. I've seen people, and I've heard of people loosening these up and turning that stator plate like 3/8 of an inch to retard it. That's pretty huge. That's a lot. Yes, the bike will still run. For the most part, the bike will run anywhere you put that stator plate, but you're looking for good performance. So what you want to do is just slowly retard it a little at a time, or maybe just go real far and come back in until you find where it pings and crack out of that just a little bit. You only want to retard it just far enough to achieve stopping the pinging and the detonation, and that's going to be your best spot if that's what you have to do. In the 4-stroke world, the more you advance the ignition timing, the more power you generally make, up to the point that your fuel can't handle it no more and it starts to detonate. But in the 2-stroke world, it is a little bit different because we have this expansion chamber, this pipe. When you get on the power band of a bike, when you roll into the throttle down at the bottom end, or you punch it as it's climbing up in the RPMs, all of a sudden you go, and it like starts pulling up real fast and hard. That's the power band, or getting on the pipe as they call it. That's when the pipe comes into effect, and it essentially acts like a turbocharger or supercharger on your bike, but it uses the exhaust resonance and pulses to achieve that. But without going into that too deeply, just know that 2-strokes are different than 4-strokes because we have this expansion chamber. So as you advance the ignition timing on a 2-stroke, you will gain torque. Just like a 4-stroke, you will gain torque and you will gain power in the RPMs range that the pipe is not in effect yet. So basically from your mid down, you'll gain power as you advance the timing. However, when you're on the pipe, when the RPMs get up high enough where the pipe comes into effect, then it kind of turns opposite. Now as you retard the timing, then you start gaining power, because as you retard the timing, it will fire later, and the combustion will fire a little bit later in the stroke, and that's going to send more heat into the exhaust pipe, and when the exhaust pipe is hotter, it performs better. So it's a balancing act. As you advance the timing, you will gain torque and bottom end and torque, and maybe even some mid-range, but you will start to lose top end when it gets on the pipe. You'll start to lose that. And as you retard it, you may gain top end when it's up on the pipe, but now you're going to start losing your bottom end and your torque. So it's a balancing act. So you want to, if you're trying to tune it in just right, you're going to want to advance it and retard it and find that sweet spot where it makes the good torque for you that you're looking for and good top end. And it's a balancing act. It's you got to share between the two of them if you're looking for the perfect balance. That being said, on this bike, every time I've done it by feel, it seems end up on stock timing. Seems to be the best balance for the YZ250. 125s are a little bit different, especially because it becomes on a 125 it becomes more about what the rider prefers. So just play with it yourself and see what you prefer. You might prefer the stock timing, you might prefer a little bit one way or the other. Now when you're fine tuning it, keep in mind that the smallest changes can make a lot. So if you're like fine tuning it, like I was saying for the 125 to get it perfect, you'll be amazed that the smallest movement it can actually be felt. The smallest change in ignition timing can be felt. So don't think you have to twist it real far one way or the other to feel a difference. It doesn't take much. Matter of fact, if you take the thickness of this line right here, just how thick that line is, which is about 1 millimeter, and you retard the timing 1 millimeter, just the thickness of that, so you bring it to right about here, that's enough to be felt on these. And when I'm fine tuning, that's about how far I make my changes, just about 1 millimeter at a time until I find that sweet spot. It doesn't take much. You don't want to go crazy with it if you're fine tuning, just a little bit at a time and find that sweet spot. And then one other quick tip, if you actually do find a spot that is better than the stock timing and you really like that for your bike, you want to have a reference. You want to be able to record it, so if you ever have to take all this apart and put it back together, you can get it right back to that same spot. Well, the best way to do that is to go ahead and hook your dial indicator back up and find the top dead center like we did earlier and zero it out and get it perfect. And then come back down here and line up, remember the line on the flywheel? You would come down here and you'd line up the line on the flywheel to the line on the stator plate, and then you would check to see what your reading is. So let's say you have slightly changed your timing, and instead of it reading 0.18 millimeters, it now reads 0.14. So now you know that you have to set that to 0, turn it until you get 0.14 before top dead center, and the line should mark up, and that will be the timing that you prefer. Well, I think that's pretty much it for this video. I'll be riding this weekend at Croom, Florida. Tomorrow I'll be taking out the YZ250 two-stroke. Then on Sunday I'm actually going to check out Bone Valley in Polk County. I've never been there before, so I'll take the 125 out there and check that out. And a shout out to all my subscribers. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Hope you have a good weekend of riding. Catch you next time.